He is the former governor of New York and was there 15 years ago yesterday on September 11th during that horrific attack on America and on New York City. Former Governor George Pataki on the line right now. Good morning, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the air.
Good morning, Bill. Nice being on with you.
So, 15 years, hard to believe, don't you think?
Hard to believe, and I'll tell you, every September 11th, you think with the passage of time it's going to get much easier, but the emotions are still there. And you see the family members who lost a loved one and the pain they still suffer, and you just realize the magnitude of what we went through that day.
Yeah. And how important it was. I mean, when you're placed in that position, where all of our talk right now is about the presidency and how someone will be able to act in those very crucial moments. But you were there, the leader of New York, and how important it was, not just for New York City, New York State, but America, for leadership, like a leader like yourself, to be able to stand up and show strength and move forward. That's a big moment, and a big moment for you.
Well, thank you. It was obviously the most momentous day, certainly in my life and probably in much of American history yet. But sadly, I'd had a number of crises as governor before, and I had a great team, and we had tremendous protocols in place to respond. But you never prepared for something like this, and it's just something where you have to, at the moment, decide what is the right thing to do and act decisively and try to set aside emotion, because when you're the leader, you just have to get the job done, and emotion can come later.
Yeah. And what about 15 years later? You hear stories of not just the survivors' families who suffer, and those, of course, that lost someone on that day, but the survivors themselves suffering in many cases from health issues.
It's very true. Members of my team are suffering from lung issues and other issues who spent a great deal of time down at Ground Zero. And that's why I was proud to sign legislation when I was governor to provide health benefits to those who we would aid who were down there. And that's why I think the Zadroga bill and its continuance is very important. The people responded without regard to their health because they knew it was not just a New York crisis, it was an American crisis. And we had to stand tall and show the world that terrorism wasn't going to cause us to bow or to give up our way of life. And now it's our turn to stand with them, and to the extent I can help make sure that type of appropriate legislation is passed, I will do that.
Governor, I just wanted to mention that current New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, I believe, just signed today or yesterday a bill that extends the deadline for those who were injured in the rescue, recovery, and cleanup at Ground Zero, the World Trade Center disability law. They now have 3 more years to file if they have suffered health impacts that have prevented them from working from that. So I just wanted to note that as well. Is that the same, or is that a different bill?
No, we signed that legislation, and it has been extended, and I think that's the right thing to do. And one of the touching moments for me yesterday is there were 2 firefighters in uniform in wheelchairs who had suffered health benefits after September 11th, and they gave me a hug and said how important the legislation that I had signed had been to their lives, and their wives were there as well. And it was an emotional day, as it always is, but for all the sense of loss, I'm also very proud of Lower Manhattan and Ground Zero now, and I hope that people from Utica and the Mohawk Valley have a chance to get down there, because it is truly, truly a very moving tribute.
Do you? Is there something that sticks out for you during the whole terrible experience at that time?
Yeah, what sticks out to me is the way in which everybody responded.
Yeah.
Sure, when the towers came down, people fled from the rubble. But as soon as that stopped, and while the fires were burning and the air was so thick you could barely make your way through it, New Yorkers turned around and were going to that site to try to help rescue people, to try to help with the recovery, and for all the pride that I think, whether it's President Bush, Mayor Giuliani, or myself can feel about how we responded that day, it's the way that New Yorkers from every walk of life responded, not just that day, but 3 months later, people still on the pile, breathing in those toxic fumes, trying to dig through the rubble.
Yeah.
But that's what stands out to me and will always be a source of inspiration.
And I remember your image there and the mayor's image, how important that was. And and President Bush, no matter where you were in politics, it was an incredible moment for America as we all stood together as Americans and not Democrats and Republicans.
That to me is the greatest disappointment. I'm proud of what we've accomplished down there with the memorial and the Freedom Tower and the rebuilding of Lower Manhattan, but I'm horribly disappointed in the loss of the sense that we're all in this together and we're all Americans, that you could feel in everybody, literally for months after September 11th. We weren't Republicans or Democrats, black or white, young or old, northern, southern. We were Americans. And we had been attacked together. We were going to stand together, and we were going to get through this together. And now, 15 years later, somebody disagrees with you, and all of a sudden it's not that you have an honest disagreement. One person's a good one person, and the other's a bad person. And Lincoln said it, over 150 years ago, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We have got to come together, find common ground, and understand that the future of America is all of our future. It's not just some of ours.
As long as we're talking a little politics, you were quite strong against Donald Trump earlier in the year. You had a chance to be a delegate and decided not to. Your thoughts on Trump? Is he coming around, or are you able to come around to Donald Trump these days?
Well, we'll see what happens as the campaign goes on. I really don't want to talk a whole lot of politics today, but I do think whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, we have to understand that people running against you are not your enemies, they're your opponent. And, I served as governor with an overwhelmingly Democratic state assembly, and I didn't treat the Democrats different from the Republicans, and I don't think they should be treated differently today. They're all elected by the people from their districts to do the best job they can, and that's what a leader has to understand. Yes, politics matters. Yes, you want to win the elections, but once they're over, you have to put that aside and govern on behalf of the people and not a political party. And I hope that both candidates are able to achieve a little more of that sense as we go forward.
When you won and you beat then Governor Mario Cuomo, that was a revolution of sorts politically. I mean, no one thought it could ever happen, but it did.
Well, I thought it could happen.
I know you thought it could happen.
Obviously, or I wouldn't have run. But,
that's a very good point.
You just keep your eye on the ball, and you make your case to the people. Everybody says, oh, my God, it's going to be so hard for a Republican to ever win in New York. And, again, I don't believe that. If you can connect with people, understand what they're looking forward to in their lives and how government can do a better job, then you just appeal to people as opposed to partisans. And we need a lot more of that in American politics.
Yeah. If nothing more, though, yesterday reminded us of that, right? That's
right. And I'll tell you, one of the moving images to me was when President Bush came 3 days later, and we landed in the heliport on the east side of Manhattan. We had to drive across Manhattan to Ground Zero, which is on the west side, and the streets were lined with people from every single ethnicity, every race, every walk of life. We went through Chinatown, we went through Hasidic neighborhoods, we went through minority neighborhoods, and it didn't matter. They were all lined up on the side of the road, waving American flags and cheering, because he wasn't a Republican president, he was our leader in a time of crisis. And that's what we need in the next president, someone who we can all be proud of. We might not vote for them, but we should be able to say, this is our leader, we'll stand behind him when the crisis comes. And let us all hope that happens as we go forward.
You have my vote, okay? I'm writing you in.
Mayor of Utica, how's that?
I'm going all the way. You're our next president. Let's go. George Pataki, Governor, we thank you so much for taking the time. And yesterday is a moment that we all reflect and to really bring it around to the point where we need to be Americans first again, I think is eloquent, and we really appreciate you driving that point home.
Thanks so much. Nice being on with you. Take care.
Governor George Pataki.